lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, and most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice-a-week long-form podcast, because I want to put the right information out there from the people who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons why I probably fly that American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday today. Gosh, I'm losing track on what day of the week it is. And yeah, I got a nice guest for you guys here today because we're going to talk financing. What is going on here? It's pretty much the end of the first month of the year. So we're going to talk about all things with that. And with that being said, as always, I got my man James Courier here on the show. James, what's up, brother? How are you?
Coach, I'm doing well, man. Good to see you. Thanks for having me back.
Dude, it's always a pleasure to have you on. And I like the acoustics of your new office that you got going on there, man. It's nice and crisp.
I need some Freight Coach artwork on the back here.
Yeah, I would. Why not?
Proudly fly the Canadian flag.
Dude, you can do that, right? Like at the end of the day, man, it's worth it. You should get that made. And get
challenge accepted. Absolutely.
Dude, get an orange. You maybe get like an orange stripe put behind you, or maybe we can get a Freight Coach neon sign and send that up your way too.
All right. Well, we'll make that happen.
So, dude, what's going on, man? How's everything going in your world? You know, it's obviously, at least from a freight perspective for me coming in, it was the January is naturally slow, right? And then you couple in some weather events and everything. Capacity gets thrown out. Spot rates went up there for a little bit. Tender rejection started to rise, and it was kind of like a glimmer of hope for a lot of people that, oh, maybe this is going to be the market recovery starting that we're looking for. And I don't know, man. But like, what from your perspective, what's going on?
You know what? That's a good way of putting it, Jolly. You and I are about the same age, so we grew up in the 80s and 90s when the term psych was really popular. I think that's what the freight market was doing in late December and early January. It was a big psych. So what I anticipate is rates staying relatively flat for probably the next few months. If you're looking at all the data and trends, then it's probably going to stay flat. Yeah. That being said, the outlook for the second half of the year is relatively strong. And so there is a very positive outlook, and we hope for really good things in late 2024.
Yeah, I think that I think you're pretty much right in line, right? Like it's really tough to predict this is when something's going to happen, right? I personally think, and this is just my opinion based on moving freight, is it's just going to be, I think like it's going to be a gradual increase here. I think because like in a normal freight market, right? Q1 is historically slow for the most part, right? And then things start to pick it back up around late March, early April and stuff like that. And I think from an incremental standpoint here, this is just my gut. This is how it's going to break down. Memorial Day, holiday weekend, that's going to start tender rejections. Obviously, everything's going to happen. People are going to shut down. Spot rates are going to climb up. And then I think from my example, because I'm very simple with math and everything, if they're at $2 a mile pre-Memorial Day, hypothetical example, they're going to spike up to like $2.30 for the holiday, and then they're going to drop back down, but they're only going to go back down to like $2.15. and then they're going to stay at 215. And then the 4th of July, it's going to ratchet up. I think that's the type of recovery that we're going to see. And it's going to be around holidays and everything else, that it's going to ratchet up for the holiday, and then it's going to drop back down, but it's not going to go down to where it was pre-holiday. And I think that's how the increase in pricing is going to happen throughout the year. Again, complete speculation, but that's kind of how it's went in the past, right? Anytime that the market changed, it was more of a gradual increase outside of any. Now, I will say this: if there's a shit weather this summer, if there's storms, tropical storms, everything else, it's going to skyrocket up, and then it's going to probably stay high. But I think it's completely based on if a major event happens, and if no major event happens, I think it's going to be the slow ratchet up effect.
You could very well be right, and candidly, I hope your crystal ball works far better than mine. Mine's been broken lately, so I will rely on your expertise to predict the spot market. What I think we're seeing and what we'll see in the later half of the year is similar to what you're saying. So you look at the contract rates and spot rates for what's going on in the West right now. For instance, in Texas, when they hit freezing temperatures, they go through the roof.
Yeah.
And you are absolutely correct that we could very well see that in the summer if there are inclement weather incidents. My hope is that it balances out at some point. And I think what we're seeing in the economy is a balancing point now where we'll start to see that incremental increase rather than the massive fluctuations that we've seen over the past few years. So we probably won't see spot rates dip further than they are right now, because I mean, essentially we're operating just slightly above what cost should be or what cost is. And so the likelihood of spot rates going down further is minimal. So they've got nowhere to go but up. And thankfully, over the past few months, the cost of diesel has drastically decreased. So yeah. I think a lot of carriers are relying upon that right now. Once those capacities start to balance out again, and we get closer to what would be considered an equilibrium on the market, we'll start to see those spot rates come up.
No, definitely, man. $3.83 a gallon is where diesel is at right now nationwide. I go to the EIA because it's released every Monday night. This is the new fuel rates and for the nationwide pricing. So the EIA.gov is where I get all that from, and it's at $3.83 a gallon right now nationwide. And I think that is right. Like, as long as fuel continues to drop, I think that's just going to be another lever that people like owner ops and small fleets are going to be able to pull to stay cash flow positive right now, right? Because I understand how challenging it is out there, and I'm sure because you obviously talk to people every single day out there, fleet owners of all sizes and everything, and if we're able to, because fuel is always going to be the biggest expense, right? That's always going to be their top expense, and if they're able to recapture any of that revenue through fuel and it continuing to drop down. And Robert Bain says this here: red, white, and blue season will definitely cause a push running right into the election, which will be telling how the market will end up for the next 18 months. And I bring because he brings up a good point, because that, generally speaking, ironically, fuel and gas prices always drop around election time, right? Like, they always tend to start dropping.
Weird how that happens.
Yeah. I'm sure it's just a complete coincidence, right? Like, there's
100% coincidence.
Not, but I think that, again, if that happens, it's like that's going to be so great for the carrier community if fuel does continue to drop down and then rates continue to ratchet up. They're going to start flipping into some profitability.
Well, and Bain brings up a good point. Thanks to the strongest man in the industry for the comment, because it reminds me that given the election coming up, we should start to see some massive subsidies coming in from the Democrats currently in power in order to push some of those people who are currently on the border with where they're going to place their vote. So what I would expect to see is some subsidies on taxes, particularly in the freight market, and probably some form of introduction of increased capital into the market in order to make people feel like they're more wealthy. Whether that sticks around or not is anyone's guess, but we should start to see that, I would imagine, probably around May and June.
Yeah. Yeah. Who
That's
knows?
typically how it goes.
Tracy St. Clair, good morning over on YouTube. Corey Buchan, happy Thirsty Thursday. He's over on YouTube as well. Bill McIntyre, good morning over on YouTube also. So dude, it was earlier today. I had pulled this article up because this kind of came up here, and it's interesting to see kind of like where's your perspective right now before I mention any of these logos or any of these articles here about this, man. Where do you see things coming from a financing perspective and access to capital, right? Because I think that that's one thing where lenders are naturally more selective in how they dual out financing in tough economic times and everything else. And I know that there was also a report this morning that the economy grew by like 3.5%. I think I saw some breaking news out there this morning that came across here. And how are you seeing things though, man? Like because you speak to not only trucking companies and everything else every day, but you also speak to lenders every single day.
I do. So great question. What I would say, without implicating myself too much, is that we've seen a massive amount of financial institutions pull back from the trucking market. And they do it cyclically, simply because of the massive fluctuations. There are institutions that have pulled 100% out, and there are institutions that have decreased their lending in trucking by up to 50% or more sometimes. So with that, what I would say is that the independent lending market is absolutely tremendous right now. And as an independent lender, it allows us and affords us the opportunity to work with customers that we would not normally get access to because of their size, breadth, whatever. So, companies like Finlock in the independent lending market have had a tremendous couple of years, and I would anticipate another tremendous 2024 simply because of the major financial institutions pulling back so heavily on trucking. Their level of comfort is just not where where ours is when you are a specialist in trucking. They don't understand the trucking market, and candidly don't care to understand the trucking market in the same fashion that a specialist would.
So is that why you guys are more risk averse when you're looking at lending out right now compared to a corporate large scale lender, because they don't know trucking, they don't know the cycles of the industry, they might have data to look at, but you guys have that tangible experience inside of the trucking industry as a whole, where you guys understand that you can look at revenue and contract commitments and freight, and you can understand where things are kind of trending on a more granular level than say an outside person who might just be a financial company who lends across all industries.
I wouldn't necessarily say that we're more risk averse or less risk averse than any other financial institution. It's that we anticipate the ebbs and flows of the transportation market and deal with it accordingly based on our customers' needs. And that's what it boils down to, is that that's the only thing we do is trucking in equipment finance. So when you have a niche market like that, you expect the ebbs and flows, you expect the ups and downs, and you deal with it accordingly. It's more about working with your customers to ensure their financial success and continued growth in order to ensure ours. I mean, it's a partnership.
What is the big difference that you found between working with a smaller non-national lender, like, I'm not saying like smaller in scale by you guys or anything like that, but like it's more of like a specialist, right? Because like I look at it as, in my business, we worked with a large national bank right away because we thought that that's just would be the best route for us. And then we switched everything over to a small regional bank. And wow, like the difference that's out there. Because again, like, here's the thing. A lot of businesses out there, and again, this is just my perspective. You guys, again, take this for what it's worth, except for the fact that I actually run a company that I founded, and I noticed it immensely, right? And it's access to capital that we didn't get offered at the large bank until we switched down to a small regional bank. They looked at us, they're like, damn, you guys are great. Like, what do you mean you've only been in business for 12 months? Like, look at your guys' financials. You guys have health. Like, we're going to pre-approve you for this line of credit. We're going to work with you on this. We want to be, because like we see the potential. You guys are highly organized in it. We know that you guys are going to do big things. We want to work with you and we want to get you in the door. And it was like mind blowing, right? And then we got the president of that bank calling us, right? Like, which is crazy because like, dude, we're not massive by any stretch of the imagination, but it's that personal touch that me as somebody who's trying to grow and scale, that stands out to me the most, right? Like and again, there's nothing against the other bank that we were using. They're great overall, but I never got that, like I never even got an outreach one time from it. And we've had like 3, and we've been with this bank for like 2 months. It's nuts.
It brings up a good point, and it basically, in my mind, all boils down to customer service. What you're going to see with smaller regional banks and independent lenders, particularly in niche markets, is that you will always have access to capital. The right people will always find money. What you're going to get with smaller lenders or smaller companies on the independent side is access to people, access to expertise, and the ability to tell your story where you don't get to tell your story to a computer that's just looking at data and analytics. When I'm asking my customers what they foresee for the next 6 months with their company and where they've been with their company, I'm trying to find out what they are doing in order to prevent disaster and what they can do in the future in order to absolutely ensure success as much as possible. I often sit down with my customers when they're brand new and ask them where they were and what they were doing in 2010 to 2012, and whether or not you were running a company or working the till at a grocery store. I want to know what you were doing in order to help that company survive through a massive downturn in the economy. I want to know that you've got what it takes in order to have the fortitude to get through a potential downturn that could be detrimental to a lot of companies.
That was one of the conversations that the regional bank had with us. That was almost an identical thing that they were saying to us. It's like, hey man, like you grew in, because they accounted for because I have like my business partner and everything. And it was like, I had my, obviously Freight Coach Enterprises, and then I had my business partner in Freight Coach Logistics, and they looked at my growth in my other company in Freight Coach Enterprises. They're like, dude, you grew in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And they looked at everything from that, and they were like, yeah, those are the people that we want to work with. It didn't matter where the experience came from. It was the fact that you showed tangible success and growth in your career in other areas out there. And they take all of those things into consideration. And that's what I love the most about the smaller bank, right? Is they're not looking at it as a line item across the board. They're actually getting to know you. They're getting to know about your business. And it's more of like, because I had Ben Gordon on my show a couple weeks back, and he's with Cambridge Capital, and we were talking about raising funds and everything out there. And he brought it up. He's like, I look at the individual, right? And he's like, most investors, they look at the individual and they believe in the person more than anything, because there's something, obviously success leaves clues. And I think that I mean, and again, I'd like to hear that from you too, man, is that something that you guys look for where it's like, hey, you know what? Success leaves clues. There's something about this person that shows that we want to work with them long-term. They have certain X, Y, and Z that they've brought to us. And we've found that throughout other people that we've lended to and everything else that's worked for them.
100%. The financial statements will give you a good snapshot of where a company is at a certain point in time. But at the end of the day, the intangibles that that's what's getting the company to where they need to be. And you have to be able to buy into the person or people that are running the company and be able to sit down and have that conversation. Where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? And how can I help you get there? And there needs to be a reasonable answer in order to get there.
Yeah. So, article that came out here, man. There's some very big brands that are coming out and saying that there's not going to be a slowdown at all. Little company called Packer, who owns Peterbilt and Kenworth.
I've heard of them.
That you've heard of them. Okay.
Yep.
They're saying that in 2024, there won't be a drop in North American truck sales. And then Mack, also another company out there who sells a couple of trucks, has explained that their pays the transparency and collaboration sold on diesels. Yeah, they're saying the same thing, that they're not expecting there to be any slowdown in truck sales or anything like that in 2024.
I think that's a fantastic outlook, and what I would say is I wish them the best with that outlook.
Yeah.
These guys are smarter than me when it comes to their projected orders. If they're saying that their orders are going to stay stable in 2024 compared to 23, then I would tend to have to believe them. And I would think that that would be a good indicator for the freight market in general.
They're literally coming out and saying that they don't see any slowdown that's out there. And they're not sure. And I'm not sure I can recognize that in our major North American markets, that we see good order intake and good visibility that's going on out there. So how, like, from your perspective though, what are you seeing in there from a, maybe it's a new truck sales, maybe it's a refinancing. What are you seeing out there, man? Because I think that there's always going to be a group of individuals, business owners, and everything else that are going to be looking at, how do I get better financing terms? How do I get better everything out there? What's the used market going to be compared to the new market here coming up? When's that going to eventually break free? And kind of like, what's the projection of that?
Well, what we're talking about, that question really entails probably a couple of dozen different factors and details. So what I would say is that the economy is expected to grow this year in North America approximately 3%. So even if it grows 3% year over year, that still introduces thousands and thousands of new power units and tens of thousands of new trailers per year, simply because not only are companies projected to grow 3% approximately, but they also have to introduce the replacements for their aging fleet. So if a company has 1,000 trailers, then they would probably have to replace somewhere between 200 and 300 trailers per year. And that's all growth aside. So if you are growing in addition to that, you're probably looking at 250, 270 trailers. So, or, potentially 150 new trucks or 170 new trucks. So if that's the case, then absolutely we would follow along with that trend, and we would lend capital accordingly. I don't think that we're unique in the way that we project what is going out in the economy right now. So I would anticipate probably 3% growth would be achievable. And, certainly in the trucking market, we would like to see that.
No, definitely. I think that everybody wants to see a massive recovery out there at the end of the day, and, get freight moving up at a higher volume, and, see the freight levels increase, see manufacturing start increasing. I think that what's going to be really interesting, James, is going to be what is the effect of nearshoring or reshoring, or however they want to do that or label it, about bringing manufacturing and then the increasing manufacturing in Mexico. How is that going to change our domestic U.S. and even going into Canada freight volumes, right? Because there's no longer a delay on ocean? Is it going to increase? I don't know, man. I think that this is like, I'm a fan of it, right? Like I would rather see the manufacturing come back into the United States of America, but I like seeing it brought back into North America as a whole, because then we don't have to deal with any potential choke points of areas, things happening out there that's going to stop the flow of goods. So, and we have more control over it here.
Oh man, again, you're casting a huge net here. So I'll try and summarize my thought in 30 seconds or less. What's going on with the Suez Canal right now? The Houthi folks with their targeting shipping containers and freighters, and the Panama Canal, the Chinese economy struggling. Everything indicates that we should be bringing more manufacturing and production back to North America. And that's exactly what's happening right now. I believe that Mexico is going to become the next biggest growth economy. And every indicator is suggesting that that's going to happen, because the global economy is so heavily reliant upon shipping. And realistically, if the Suez Canal and Panama Canal shut down tomorrow, it would grind everything to a halt. You're seeing shipping delays of over 2 weeks right now. And in a just-in-time world, that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So my prediction is probably in line with a lot of other folks in the freight world right now. I would expect Mexico and the United States and Canada all together to start increasing their level of involvement with bringing manufacturing back.
I think, because to me, man, it's more of an opportunity than anything, right? Like
massive opportunity,
dude. And again, follow the money, no matter what, in everything. But like, there's a massive growth opportunity that's out there, and even from a service provider's perspective, as a broker, learning how to move freight in and out of Mexico is going to become very, very lucrative as long as this trend continues. And then again, what does that come with, man? That comes with replacing your fleet a little bit here and getting newer equipment, because that's going to look more appealing out there in the market and everything else. So I think that it could possibly bring a solid, I don't want to call it like a major boom or anything like that, but I think that it could really open up some new avenues for revenue for a lot of trucking companies and brokerages out here, the way that this shakes out, right? And then building up new trailer pools down on, in border cities across the southern U.S. and everything like that, man. Like that's going to be, what are you going to need to do? You got to buy more trailers, right? Buy more trucks. Got to get out there. And who do you call in those instances? Call my boy James is what you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, man, I think that there's an opportunity in any market, right? And I think that there's a lot of people who are nervous to pull the trigger in certain situations. And I am more of I'll just run through the wall and figure it out after I get through there type of mentality. But I would rather invest when I didn't need something than not be able to get it when I need it, right? Because I think from an overall freight commitment, and again, if you're out there selling, you're actively growing your book of business and everything else, and you're looking for commitments, and then your customers are looking for commitments, and a lot of these opportunities come up last minute. I would rather have stuff in the pipeline ready to go where you can execute upon that, have your financing locked in, have the orders essentially ready to go when you're ready to go and you get that green light from your customers. Because I don't know, I just think that everything's an invest. There's a risk in any market, no matter what, no matter how you want to spin it. And if you're committed to it for the long haul, you cannot be afraid to pull the trigger on any of these things, because otherwise somebody's going to, right? Like, you're still making deals, right, James? You're still making things happen. You're still talking to people every single day when it boils down to it. And from there, there's going to be people who are going to win with that mentality. We're like, no, let's just do it. Let's just do it.
I've rarely met a person who was not rewarded for hard work. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to play hurt, and sometimes the economy doesn't go the way you want it to go. That doesn't mean that there is not an opportunity for growth. In my mind, there is always an opportunity for growth, and there's always a good reason to get up and push forward the next day.
There's an opportunity any day, my man. James, how does anybody to reach out to you, bro? We're already at 30 minutes in this.
Oh, man. It seems to go faster every time, Jolly.
Every single time.
James Courier, I can be reached on LinkedIn or james.courier@finlock.com. Happy to talk to anybody. And candidly, every time I've attended one of these, Jolly, with you, I've had one or two of your listeners reach out, and we've always had a fantastic conversation, and it's always welcome.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Thank you guys. As always, we'll be back tomorrow, Q&A day. All right, Fridays are Q&A day. If you have any sales or operations related questions for the transportation industry, DM them over to me or drop them in the chat live tomorrow, and I'll answer them on the show. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe and share it out there, you guys, because this is how we reach more people. But most importantly, this is how we help more people, is because if you saw value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.